Good morning. Today we are going to learn about microcontroller 8051. So the block diagram of a microcontroller. This consists of the input device, output device, memory and microprocessor. So from this input device, from this input device, whatever the user gives the data, that enters into this processor, where the processing part is done at this microprocessor. Then that output is stored on a memory, and we can see it or take the output from the output device. Now, whenever we talk about the microprocessor have the major components called ALU, means arithmetic and logical unit, and register array and timing and control unit. These are the three major components. Generally this microprocessor can be of 8-bit processor or 16-bit processor or 32-bit processor. Whenever I say my processor is of 8-bit, that means at a time it can access only 8-bit. If it is of 16-bit, then it can take 16 bits of data and it can access those 16 bits of data. If I say 32, then it can access 32 bit of data. Now coming to this processor, it is responsible for performing all the arithmetic and logical operations. So by using this arithmetic and logical, logical operations, the decision making can be done using this microprocessor. So for an input device, example can be a keyboard or mouse, some input device, whereas output device can be a monitor, CRT, etc. Now memory. When it comes to memory, the memory unit is used to store some data or address or some instructions in hexadecimal form. This memory unit is divided into two parts: primary memory and secondary memory. The primary memory is again subdivided into two units, that is, one is RAM and ROM, where RAM is nothing but random access memory and read only memory. So RAM is a temporary memory and ROM is a permanent memory. So this RAM is used to store all the data what we give to a processor, whereas ROM is used to store the codes, programs of this 8051. And whereas for example of secondary memory, we can say we have a hard disk, so that can also be called as auxiliary memory. So now we already seen the example for input device is keyboard, switch. It can be some input device. The work of this input device is the computer receives the data and instructions through this input devices, whereas the output device, the computer sends the processed data, whatever the result we get, to the output device, and we can view through output device. Like if we take a printer, you will get a print. On a CRT, you get a display in that way. So this is all about microcontroller, block diagram of microcontroller. Now comparison of processor, microprocessor and controller. So this microprocessor, it contains ALU, control unit, different registers and interrupt, whereas microcontroller consists of microprocessor, memory, IO ports and peripheral devices. So in this microcontroller, microprocessor itself is one of the part inbuilt in it. Including microprocessor, we also have memory, input output ports, peripheral devices. So all are this inbuilt in one controller. So we can call it as a mini computer, because by all that input devices, it can easily act like a computer. Whereas processor itself can't act like a mini computer. For that you need to add some extra parts like input output devices and memory elements. all these need to be added. So that is the reason a processor requires more hardware, whereas controller requires less hardware. And because of this more hardware, processor takes more space, it occupies more space, whereas controller requires less space because everything is inbuilt in a small single chip. So it requires very less space compared to processor. For example, if I talk about processor, I can say your computer, your personal computer, whereas controller, that is used in many different gadgets in your day-to-day life, like your controller, remote controller, and then your ACs. Okay, in your day-to-day life, there are so many gadgets, so that where you use them. Next, microprocessor. Third point, the microprocessor is more flexible in design point of view, whereas microcontroller is less flexible. As we discussed, in microprocessor we take some extra hardware, it requires more hardware, and we attach to this processor, whereas controller has inbuilt. So whenever I want to change some memory or some of the equipment is damaged, then I can easily replace whatever the hardware, I can remove that and replace with another in processor. Whereas in controller, that is not as flexible as processor, because all are inbuilt. So either we can replace the complete chip, or it is a very complex process to replace other things. Next, in microprocessor, very few pins are programmable. In microcontroller, most of the pins are programmable. Most of the pins are programmable. That is nothing but this controller has a capability of having several functions. So the pins in whatever the microcontroller has, it has several functions. Each pin has many functions, whereas in processor it has very few functions. Then this processor has 1 or 2 bit handling instructions, whereas controller has many bit handling instructions. Bit handling instructions are nothing but individual bit can be manipulated using that instruction. Single bit can be manipulated. So you have many instructions in controller to manipulate a bit, whereas in processor you have very 1 or 2 bit handling instructions. So this is about a processor and a controller. So in controller, complete processor is inbuilt, including some memory, IO, peripheral devices and all. And even cost wise, controller is cheaper than processor. Applications of controller, we use this microcontrollers in so many day-to-day applications. As I said, your cell phone, pager, watch, then calculator, video games, alarm clock, air conditioner, even air conditioner remote, TV remote, then microwave, oven, washing machine, this is a weight display system, then robotic systems, then anti-lock braking system, monitor, then you have your geyser at homes. Okay, so you have so many different applications where you can use this controllers. Then history of 8051 microcontroller. Yeah, so this 8051, in 1980, Intel Corporation introduced an 8-bit microcontroller called 8051. So this 8-bit 8051 was introduced in 1980 by Intel Corporation, and this 8051 has 4 kilobytes of ROM and 128 bytes of RAM, 1 serial port, 2 16-bit timers and 32 IO pins. or else you can also write 4 ports, 4 input output ports. So these are generally the features of 8051. Yeah, next in this, CPU can work with 8-bit of data at a time. So as I said, this is 8-bit microcontroller. So at a time it can access only 8-bit. So if you give larger than 8-bit of data, then it will just break into 8-bit pieces, and that information will be processed by CPU. Next, features of 8051. So this 8051 has 40-bit. Sorry, this 8051 has 40 pins, and it is dual inline package. It is not mentioned in this slide, and this is of 8-bit controller. The internal ROM, we can also call it as on-chip ROM. This is inbuilt ROM, that is a sizes of 4 kilobytes, 128 bytes of RAM. This can also be called as on chip because these are internal ROM and RAM. Next you have two 16-bit dual 16-bit timer or event counter. So this timer can also act as an event counter. So that can be called as counter or timer. So you have two 16-bit timers. Next, 32 IO lines for 4 8-bit IO inputs. As I said, you can say it as you have 4 ports. Each port has 8-bit IO lines. So 4 into 8, total you have 32 IO lines. Next, you have one serial port. Yeah, here see, it can address 64 kilobytes of program memory. It can address 64 kilobytes of data memory. Program memory means you can also call it as ROM. You can also call it as code, because in ROM generally we store the codes, the programs what we write. And in RAM we'll have the data, the user data, whatever we give. That data is stored in RAM. So RAM is also called as data memory, and ROM is also called as program memory or code memory. So here what he is mentioning is, already we have internal RAM and ROM, the size of internal RAM and ROM. Apart from that, if we need more memory, if that internal memory is not sufficient, we can take external memory, and that external memory can be addressed up to 64 kilobytes of RAM and 64 kilobytes of ROM. That is what this two lines means. Next, we have instruction set with 111 instructions. Like processor 8086, it has its own instruction set. Same way 8051 has its instruction set, and instruction set is defined as group of instructions together. We call them as instruction set. So this 8051 has total 111 instructions. So in that you have single byte instructions, 2 byte instructions, and 3 byte instructions. So in this 111 instructions, 49 instructions are single byte instructions, and 45 instructions are 2 byte instructions, and 17 instructions are 3 byte instructions. Okay, each instruction size I am talking about. You will have 3 byte, 2 byte, and single byte instructions. So 17 are 3 byte, 45 are 2 byte, and 49 are single byte. Altogether you have 111 instructions. Then you have 2 external interrupts. Generally, interrupt is nothing but whenever a processor is doing its work, whenever I give some external interrupt, what is going to happen is the processor halts there, and it will try to do the work allotted by me. I interrupted the processor. So whatever the interrupt was, it will try to jump to that vector address wherever the interrupt is, and it will do that work first. Then once it completes the interrupt, again it will return where it halted. So from there again it starts to do its work. Next, you have the clock up to 12 megahertz. So the clock of this 8051 is of 12 megahertz. Generally, if they don't mention you 12 megahertz, you will consider it to be as 11.529 megahertz. Yeah, so these are the features of 8051. Whenever they ask you the features of 8051, you should able to be write all these features. Now we will see the block diagram of 8051. So this is the block diagram of 8051. Before we saw block diagram of microcontroller, and this is a block diagram of 8051. So here you have CPU, this red color block, you have CPU, and down you have an oscillator connected to that, and for the oscillator, for this oscillator you have oscillator work is nothing but this circuit generates a basic timing clock signal for the operation of a circuit using crystal oscillator. So here you have these two pins down which are connected to ground. In between you have a crystal. Generally we use quartz crystal. So whenever we use that crystal, we'll connect between two pins. That is Xtal1 and Xtal2. In a pin diagram you have these two pins, 18 and 19, pin number 18 and 19. So we'll study in detail over there. Yeah, now next you have interrupt control. So this interrupt control, I said we have two external interrupts. So those pins are connected to that interrupt control. Now next we have is here bus control. So coming to this bus control, first of all, what is bus? Bus is nothing but collection of wires together. Okay, a group of wires together is called as a bus. So a control bus is used by a microcontroller for communicating with other devices within the system. So the type, I mean, you have three types of buses. One is address bus. Okay, one more is data bus and control bus. Address, data and control bus. These are the three buses. And this is control bus. What we are seeing is. So now using this bus controls all the buses, all the connections over here. Now next you have I/O ports. I said you have 4 ports, port 0, port 1, port 2, port 3. So in each port you have 8 bits again. Okay, 8 bits. So in that way, in each port you have 8 bits. So total you will have 32 I/O lines. Next you have a serial port. So if you have any serial data that can be received using this pin RxD, and it can be if we have some serial data to be transmitted to some other, we can transmit using this TXD pin. Okay, this here we give serial information, and here we give I/O ports, the parallel data is being transferred either, and this is bidirectional. Okay, it can act like input or else output, so it is bidirectional. So this is called parallel. Parallelly it takes all 8 bits at a time, because in port 0 you have 8 pins, so all 8 bits are taken at a time. And in serial, if you give some 8 bit of data, it will take 8 cycles to execute that, to take that input, because each time at a time it can't take all 8 bits. Each time for one cycle it takes 1 bit, whereas this parallel input output ports, all 8 bits are taken at a time. Now you have timer 0 and timer 1. I said you have two 16-bit timers, so that is here timer 0 and timer 1. Next you have is RAM and ROM. So here in this ROM, the size is of 4 kilobytes. Next RAM size is of 128 bytes. These both are the memory, internal memory of this block diagram of 8051. Now we will see the Intel microcontroller family chips. Okay, so this Intel company has introduced, has produced different chips of this microcontroller family, where we have 3 here, that is 8051, 8052 and 8031. In this we have the first feature is ROM, that is on chip ROM, internal ROM. For 8051 we already know it was 4K. So compared to 8051 and 52, 8052 is double of 51. So 4K in 8052 you have 8K. If 51 you have 4, in 52 you have 8K. Whereas in 31 you have 0K. There is no ROM, internal ROM. Yeah. Now 8051 RAM. Coming to this RAM, you have the RAM, internal RAM size in 8051 you have is 128 bytes. In 8052 you have 256 bytes, and in 8031 you have 128 bytes. Next, timers. Coming to timers, in 8051 you have two timers. In 8031 also you have two timers, whereas in 8052 you have three timers. So IO ports, or in all three chips you have same IO pins, that is 32, 32 and 32. Then you have a serial port. In all the three chips you have one serial port. Interrupts. In 8051 and 8031 you have 6 interrupts. In 8052 you have 8 interrupts. So this is about the family. If they ask you about Intel microcontroller family chips, you can take one or two more and you can just compare them and write it. Now we will see about the pin diagram of 8051. So this pin diagram has 40 pins. 8051 has 40 pins, and out of this 40 pins, 20 pins are to the left side and right side you have 20. I'll give you the easiest way to draw this pin diagram. No need to panic just looking at this pin diagram. I suggest you people can take pencil and paper and just draw the pin diagram the way I say. Okay, first what are the pins I ask you to write? Write it in that pattern so that it will be easy for you all to remember this pin diagram. Yeah, so now in this pin diagram you have 1 to 40 pins. So to the left side we are just writing 1 to 20. Up first we are writing 1, 2, 3 and we are ending down up to 20. After that we are starting 21 from down to up. So 21, 22, 23 upwards you keep writing and you end at 40. So all 40 pins you have written. Now after writing all these 40 pins, first what you do is take pin number 20 and pin number 40. Take this both pins and write 20 as ground. The 20th pin is ground pin, whereas 40th pin is VCC supply. Okay, plus 5 volts is given, plus 5 volts DC power supply is given to 8051. So 40 is VCC pin, 20 is ground pin. After writing this both, first we will write port 0. Coming to port 0, start writing from 39 to downwards. Okay, 39, 38, 37 in that way. So 39 you have port 0.0. Port 0 has 8 pins, right? So that is 0.0, 0.1, 0.2. In that way you keep writing up to 0.7. So port 0.0 starts at 39 and port 0.7 ends at 32. So these are total 8 pins. After writing them, come to down, that is 21st pin number. When you come to this 21st pin number, here you have first you need to write 2.0. Here the direction is changing again from down to upwards. You keep writing from down to upwards. First at 21st pin you write P2.0, then at 22 you write P2.1, then 2.1 so on. Keep writing up to P2.7 and end it at 28, pin number 28. So port 2 starts at 21 and ends at 28. So after writing this, to your right side only 3 pins will be left over, that is 29, 30, 31. These 3 pins will be left over. So now after finishing that, at 29th pin write PSEN bar. You generally it is mentioned as minus, it is nothing but active low pin. That means it is active low pin. So PSEN, then 30 ALE, 31 EA. Okay, 29 is PSEN, active low pin, 30 is ALE, this is active high, EA is again active low pin, that is 31. So now right side we have completed. First we have written port 0, port 2, then between 3 pins were remaining, we have written. If you don't want to write that now, you can leave those 3 pins. First after writing port 0 and port 2, we can write port 1 and port 3 next. So now coming to port 1, start writing from pin number 1 to pin number 8. Port 1.0, 1.1, keep writing up to P1.7. So now 8 pins are done. After writing this 8 pins, leave one pin, that is 9th pin. Always 9th pin is reset pin. So leave that 9th pin and start writing from 10th pin. Start writing port 0, that is P3.0, 3.1, 3.2 and so on, and end it at pin number 17. Okay, so once you write this port 1 and port 2, the left side the pins will be remaining is pin number 9 will be remaining and pin number 18 and 19 will be remaining, because already pin number 20 and 40 we have written in the starting, that is this is for 20 is for ground and 40 is for supply. So now here for your right side 3 pins are left over between port 0 and 2, and to your left side 9th pin is left over between port 1 and port 3, and down you have 18 and 19, these are the only pins left over. So now 9th pin is always reset. Port 1 and port 3 between you have 9th pin is left, that there you write off reset. Then here down 18 and 19, first 19th pin you write crystal, extal is extal 1, extal 2. Okay, this oscillator signals where I said you have 2 pins in your block diagram, right? In between those 2 pins you are having a crystal, quartz crystal. So that time between these 2 pins you just have a quartz crystal. So instead of quartz crystal, if you take some other like TTL, then no need of connecting for both the pins. One pin is just left over, that is connected to only one pin. So here after writing to the left side, now coming to the right side, I have said already EA, ALE, PSEN, whereas EA and PSEN both are active low pins. Okay, we will see the full form of that, we will see each pin how does it work. Now further we will see that, but before going to that, one last time I will just say it in pin number wise. See, first to write this pin diagram, first mark this 40 pins, 1 to 20, again from downwards to upwards 21 to 40. After marking this, coming to the right side first, 40th pin you mark VCC and 20th pin you mark with ground. After doing this, come to the right side, port 0 and port 2 you need to write. So port 2 you start writing from 39 to 32. After that, from downwards you start writing port 2, that is from 21 to 28. So 8 pins, once that is done, in between 3 pins will be left over, that you leave it for last, we will write in the ending what to be filled. Then you have port 1 and port 3, so that need to be written in your left side, that is from 1 you start writing your port 1, it will end at port 8, pin 8. So port 1 is completed, then leave one pin in between, then start writing port 3 from 10th pin, that is port 3.0 and so on to pin 17. So pin 10 to 17 your port 3 ends. Now 2 pins will be remaining. So now the 9th pin which was remaining between port 1 and 3, right over there reset. Then down of this port 3, 2 pins were remaining. Right there 19th pin as extal 1, 18th pin as extal 2. Okay. Next, come to the right side, only 3 pins are left over, 29, 30, 31. Just write it there EA. Okay, EA is nothing but external access. Whenever you wanted to use external memory, then you will enable this EA. By making it 0, the external access can be accessed as it is active low pin. Then next you have is ALE pin. Okay, this EA pin is input pin, reset pin is also input pin. Okay, reset pin and EA pin are input. So that is the reason whenever you write, the arrows should be inverts, for because as this is input, arrows should be inverts for EA and reset. Yeah, ALE. ALE is address latch enable and it is output pin. So now this pin, whenever I have this address and data buses at port 0, so that this pin is used to demultiplex this address and data bus. Whenever I wanted address bus, then it emits the address bus. Whenever I wanted a data bus, it emits the data bus. So for that reason we use ALE, address latch enable. Then now, yeah, port 1, port 3, port 0 and port 2 are completed. Even these 3 pins, EA, ALE, PSEN. We have completed these 3 pins. Reset, by giving reset 9th pin, by giving reset is equal to 0, whenever I give the reset pin, at that pin whenever I make it as 0, it is going to reset. and whenever I'm going to make that reset pin as high, whenever I make that reset pin as high, then this pin resets the microcontroller. Whenever I give 0, by applying 0 on that reset pin, then the program starts execution from the beginning. This is about reset pin. Then supply and ground, yeah. So these are all the pins, and here see the total number of 32 pins are set aside for the 4 ports, port 0, port 1, port 2, port 3, which were ports taken, which each port takes 8 pins. So that means out of 40 pins, 32 pins are taken away for complete 4 ports. So remaining how many pins you have? 8 pins. So 8 pins are nothing but your 2 pins goes for VCC and ground, then other 2 pins go for this crystal oscillator, that means Xtal 1 and Xtal 2. Okay, next reset 1 pin, that is 5 pins are completed, then the remaining 3 pins are EA, ALE, PS, EN. So overall this 8 pins you need to remember, because 32 pins are very easy to remember. Those are 4 ports. Now in this 4 ports, I said you have address bus and data bus. So in port 0 you have lower order address bus and data bus. Okay, in port 2 you have higher order address bus. Okay, data, it is of 8-bit controller, microcontroller. So data you have, it can access only 8 bits of data. So you have D0 to D7, only 8 bits of data. Whereas address is of 16 bit. So you have 16 address pins, I mean buses. From there you can access the address bus. Now did I left anything? Yeah, now port 3. Coming to port 3, you have special functions for port 3. Port 3.0, that pin, it also acts like a receiver pin, whereas 3.1 is transmitter pin. And I said you have 2 external interrupts. Those are nothing but this 3.2, port 3.2 and port 3.3. External interrupt 0 and external interrupt 1. That is nothing but this both, and both are active low pins. That is why there you have a minus sign. Now next you have timers. I said you have 2 timers. Okay, so that is nothing but your timer 0 and timer 1. Next you have write operation and read operation. Even these both are active low pins because you have minus sign over there. So even this in an order, easy way to remember is, see, it starts with a receiving pin and ends with a read operation. Okay, so receiver and transmitter, then you have external interrupt 0 and interrupt 1, then you have timer 0 and timer 1, then you have write and read operation. So apart from all this, in general all 4 ports will act like input output ports. Okay, if you have an external memory access, then port 0 and port 2, it will act like the address or data buses. Else it will act like input output. Even port 3, if it has a specific function of that special function, it will do that. Else it will act like a normal input output port, even port 1. So this is about your pin diagram. Here the same things are given. 8051 VCC and VSS reset pin. See, ALE pin, it is used for demultiplexing address and data, whereas it is valid only for external memory access. So ALE is used only whenever some external memory is used. Next, EA. Whenever EA is equal to 0, then execute program on external memory. So whenever EA is equal to 0, then only ALE pin also will use, because when EA is equal to 0, we are using external memory, and when we are using external memory, we wanted the address buses to be used. So ALE we use at that moment for demultiplexing the address and data buses. Yeah. Now EA, whenever EA is equal to 1, there is the program is not executed from external, it is executed from internal memory. Okay. Now next you have is PSEN, we just discussed. PSEN, it acts like a strobe to read the external memory. Next, see, it is low during external program memory access. Always this PSEN is low during external memory access, because it is used to read whenever external program memory is used. Okay, so when that means this is active low pin. So definitely that will be equal to 0 whenever external memory is accessed. Next, see, port 0. This is 8-bit bidirectional bit addressable IO port. Okay. and here they also given SFR address range. So this address ranges we will see later in the further classes. So this act as a multiplexed address and data lines during external memory access. See port 0, at port 0 you have address and data lines, that is what he mentioned. Okay, so generally this SFR address range is nothing but this port 0 is at 80H. The address is mentioned in hexadecimal. So 80H. Next port 1, 8-bit bidirectional 8-bit addressable port. See, when all these ports are, he mentioned it as bit addressable. So whenever I say it as a bit addressable, I can manipulate individual bit in that port. Okay, see, if I want to write port 0 as 0 with 00H value, so all P0.0, 0.1 to 0.7 all will be 0. Then if I want to write 01H in P0 value, in port 0 value, if I want to write P01H, okay, the hexa in hexa format, for the value, for the decimal value 1, I am writing it as 01H. So then what can I do? Before already it has 00H. So instead of me writing all zeros and one the other time, what will I do is I'll just change P 0.0 to 1, from 0 to 1. I'll just change that. Okay. So for that I have set set B. You have that instruction. Okay. So by using that instruction, I'll only change P 0.0 to 1. Remaining all will be zeros as it is. So by this, what am I doing is I'm changing only one bit there. So that is called as bit addressable. So if instead of that, if I change the complete port 0, if I change 4 zeros and 3 zeros and 1, that is called byte addressable. Okay. So this is the difference between bit addressable and byte addressable. So all the ports are bit addressable. There are few special functions registers which are only byte addressable. We can't change individual bits. Okay, so we can manipulate individual bits in this ports. So that is the reason he is mentioning bit addressable port. Now even port 2. Look at port 2, you have higher order address buses. So during external memory, it emits higher 8 bits of address when ALE is equal to 1 and EA is equal to 0. So that is what he meant. This is address latch enable and EA is active low pin. So whenever that is equal to 0, high external address is used, external memory is used. So then ALE will be equal to 1, address latch enable, because when it is equal to 1, only then the port input output port will act like the higher order address bus. Okay, if it is not equal to 1, that will act like normal input output port. Yeah. Next, port 3. See, this is also 8-bit bidirectional bit addressable port, allotted an address in SFR. Yeah, I didn't tell this port. When I said port 0 is at 80H, then port 1, the address where it starts is 90H, port 1, whereas port 2, it starts at A0H. Next, port 3, the address range is at B0H. So 80, 90, A0, B0. Next, this is crystal extal 1 and 2. A crystal is to be connected externally between these two pins to complete the feedback path of this, to start the oscillator. Okay, the controller can be operated on external clock. So this is the functional block diagram of 8051. So see, just look at this dotted lines, the outline, the dotted lines. Here we have we should have total 40 pins. So if you see this dotted line, out we have port 0 drivers, it emitted of 8 pins, there 8 pins at port 2, port 1 driver 8 pins, port 3 driver 8 pins. You got 8 pins out. So total 32 pins have been done. Next, how many more pins you need? you need 8 pins. So see here above you have VCC and VSS, nothing but supply and ground. 2 pins are done. So remaining 6 pins. So down near oscillator you have 2 pins, external 1 and external 2. Okay, so now remaining 4 pins. The 4 pins are here, that is reset is 1 pin and EA, ALE, PSCN 3 pins. So now this outline is nothing but your 8051. Internally what are there in that? That is nothing but your 80 functional block diagram. Internally what all you will have. Okay. So I said we have RAM, ROM. Okay. Then we have ports, 4 ports. So this can be easily seen here. First we will draw ALU, okay, arithmetic and logical unit, and this generally this temporary register 1 and temporary register 2 are generally integrated with this ALU itself. These both registers you have accumulator register here ACC, then B register. Okay, so these are above ALU near temporary registers. Down you have PSW. PSW is nothing but program status word, that is also called as flag register. So after this you have a stack pointer to your right side. Now come go above that bus. So you have above RAM, and beside RAM you have RAM address register. Okay, then to your right side you have ROM and ROM address register. Is that fine? So these are the address registers. For this the memory for RAM, and this is the memory for ROM. Here then in between you have port 0 and port 2. These are latches, and to that latches you have a port 0 driver and port 2 driver. And always port 2 and 3 are connected to your ROM itself, because I said programs are stored in this ROM, where in port 0 and port 2 have address buses, higher order and lower order address buses. So it needs to fetch from there. So port 0 and 2 are connected to ROM. Whereas RAM is not connected, because RAM has a normal data, the user data, whatever we give in the program, those it will store. Next below you have DPTR. DPTR is nothing but data pointer, then program counter, PC incrementer, buffer. Buffer is used for your serial transmission and reception. Okay, transmission and reception can't happen at a time, either transmission or reception. So whenever it is transmitting, this buffer will act like a transmitter buffer. Whenever it is receiving, this buffer will act like a receiver buffer to store that information. Okay, now next you have DPTR. DPTR is nothing but it is 16-bit, okay, data pointer. So whenever you use external memory, this data pointer is used to point those addresses. This is of 16-bit, and that can be accessed in 8-bit and 8-bit, that is DPL and DPH, data pointer lower order and data pointer higher. Next you have program counter. Program counter is nothing but whenever a program is been executing, the program counter stores the next address whatever is to be executed. Okay, next after program counter you have the incrementer. So see what happens is, whenever you try to one line, if you have a 5-line program, if the third line is being executed, program counter has the 4th line, the address of 4th line in it. So by incrementing by 1, I mean it increments the address by 1 using this PC incrementer. Okay, it increments by 1 and it points towards the next instruction to be executed. So the definition of program counter is, in the execution of a program, whenever one line is executing, the program counter the program counter points towards the next instruction to be executed. This is the definition of a program counter. So now we saw what is DPTR, program counter, PC incrementer. This is towards your right. Now next, coming here in between you have interrupt, serial port and timers. I said you will have 6 interrupts, 1 serial port and 2 16-bit timers. So that box is over there. Now to your left side you have near PSW you have timing and control. Next you have instruction register. So the instructions, 111 instructions, whatever we discussed about, so the present instruction what to be executed will be there. Next the oscillator, down under this timing and control. So and you have port 1 and port 3 latch, then it's drivers. Okay, so this is the main introduction of functional block diagram. And after this, in detail, each thing what it does, we'll what does accumulator and B register are of 8-bit, PSW is of 8-bit. You have stack pointer register, even that is of 8-bit. Stack pointer register is nothing but some locations in a RAM, internal RAM. Okay, generally that is initialized at 07H of internal RAM location. Whenever whenever I try to store some value using the stack pointer, it increments by 1 and then stores. When I try to retrieve the value, then from a stack pointer, if I try to retrieve the value, first it retrieves the value, then decrement by 1. Generally the operation goes in this way. In depth we'll study about that in the further classes. So for today we'll end here with this functional block diagram. I just introduced you to this functional block diagram. In detail we'll see in next class.